A film that pushed European cinema into territory many audiences weren't prepared for. When The Tin Drum arrived in 1979, it didn't simply tell a story about growing up. It challenged the way audiences looked at childhood, war, morality, and the adult world. And some of its most controversial scenes would eventually trigger censorship battles and legal disputes. Yet this same film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and an Academy Award. So how did a movie praised as a masterpiece become a source of such fierce controversy? And what was director Volker Schlöndorff really trying to say? The answer begins with Oskar, a boy who makes one extraordinary decision. He refuses to grow up. Released in 1979, The Tin Drum, originally titled Die Blechtrommel, was directed by Volker Schlöndorff and adapted from Günter Grass's acclaimed novel. The story is generally classified as a coming-of-age drama, dark comedy, psychological drama. IMDb currently lists it at approximately 7.4 out of 10, with more than 28,000 user ratings. The story begins in 1924 in the free city of Danzig, a politically complicated place situated between German and Polish identities. Here, a boy named Oskar enters a world already filled with contradictions. His family is complicated, his surroundings are politically divided, and the society around him is slowly moving toward one of the darkest periods in modern European history. But Oskar is not an ordinary child. According to the story, when he reaches the age of 3, he makes a decision. He will stop growing. From that moment onward, his body remains that of a child, while his understanding of the adult world continues to develop. He carries a small tin drum with him almost everywhere. And he discovers another extraordinary ability. His scream can shatter glass. Those strange abilities aren't simply fantasy, they become symbols. The drum represents his refusal to accept the world around him. The scream becomes a form of protest, and Oskar himself becomes an unusual observer of history. Oskar's story unfolds against the rise of Nazism, the Second World War, and the destruction of the world he once knew. But Schlöndorff doesn't present history like a conventional war movie. There are no constant battlefield sequences. Instead, political change enters through ordinary life. A street changes, a family conversation becomes tense, a familiar person suddenly supports a dangerous political movement. A public celebration begins to feel threatening. The world around Oskar gradually becomes less recognizable. This is one of the film's most important ideas. History doesn't only happen in government buildings or on battlefields. It enters kitchens, it enters schools, it enters friendships, it enters families, and eventually, it changes the way ordinary people see one another. Oskar watches all of this from his unusual position. He is physically trapped in childhood, but he sees more than the adults expect him to. His refusal to grow up therefore becomes a metaphor for resistance. He doesn't want to become like the people around him. He doesn't want to accept their hypocrisy. He doesn't want to follow the crowd simply because everyone else is doing it. But there is another side to Oskar's rebellion. He isn't a traditional hero. He can be selfish, he can be destructive, and sometimes his actions create consequences he doesn't fully understand. That complexity makes the character much more interesting than a simple symbol of innocence. Oskar is both observer and participant. He watches history happen, but he also becomes part of it. Before The Tin Drum reached cinemas, the novel had already developed a reputation as a difficult work to adapt. Schlöndorff wasn't the first filmmaker interested in the project. According to Criterion's historical account of the film, directors like Roman Polanski and Andrzej Wajda had also been approached about adapting the novel but did not proceed. The problem was obvious. How do you transform a huge literary work filled with internal thoughts and symbolic events into a 2-hour movie? The result was a major European production rather than a small experimental film. Yet the filmmakers still faced enormous pressure. They had to capture decades of history. They had to recreate Danzig. They had to translate Grass's surreal ideas into visual form. And they had to finish the film in time for Cannes. That deadline would eventually affect the final version. At the heart of the film was David Bennett, who played Oskar. He was only 11 when the film was made. His unusual physical appearance made him particularly convincing as a character who seemed permanently trapped between childhood and adulthood. Criterion notes that Bennett's growth was medically unusual, which helped create the visual effect required for the role. But appearance alone could not carry a film of this scale. Bennett had to remain convincing while the world around him changed dramatically. He had to communicate Oskar's intelligence, anger, curiosity, humor, and confusion without turning the character into a simple caricature. That performance became one of the film's defining elements. Alongside him were established actors, including Mario Adorf, Angela Winkler, Katharina Thalbach, and Daniel Olbrychski. The contrast between the young lead and the experienced adult cast became part of the film's unusual rhythm. Oskar constantly watches the adults, and the adults often underestimate him. That relationship creates much of the film's tension. When the Tin Drum arrived at the 1979 Cannes Film Festival, it wasn't simply another literary adaptation. It was a major statement from the emerging German cinema of the period. The film was entered in competition and won the Palme d'Or, sharing the prize with Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. The Cannes Archive officially records the award as a joint Palme d'Or. That was an extraordinary achievement. The film had taken a difficult German novel and transformed it into a visually ambitious international production. Cannes gave it immediate prestige. But the film's greatest recognition was still ahead. At the 1980 Academy Awards, the Tin Drum won the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film, representing the Federal Republic of Germany. It became one of the rare films to win both the Palme d'Or and the Academy Award in that period. Suddenly, what might have been regarded as an unusual European art film had become an internationally recognized success. For all its awards and critical recognition, The Tin Drum has never been an easy film to discuss. Some of the controversy comes from the movie's depiction of disturbing material involving its young protagonist. Because David Bennett was an actual child actor during production, certain scenes later became the subject of legal and censorship disputes. The controversy was particularly significant in the United States and Canada. The film faced censorship actions in several jurisdictions, including an Oklahoma case in the 1990s. Criterion also describes the movie as having become embroiled in a high-profile legal controversy in Oklahoma. This history deserves careful treatment. The film's artistic reputation does not erase legitimate questions about how difficult material involving young performers should be handled. At the same time, the controversy should be distinguished from the film's broader historical significance. The Tin Drum was not merely a controversial movie, it was also a major literary adaptation, an important work of post-war German cinema, a Cannes winner, and an Academy Award winner. Its reputation exists at the intersection of all those things.